So, I'm sure you all know Ron Paul had a stroke live on his show, Liberty Report, and it was a tough thing to watch. Someone posted it. I thought it was some bad joke at first, but then I realized, oh no, this is actually true. So, obviously, it's great to see now that he's doing well, giving a thumbs up, and I hope he makes a full recovery, of course. He is 85 years old, so he's definitely up there, but I'm just hoping he can continue doing his show. But you never know, it's understandable if he can't. But that was rough, really tough thing to watch, and if you haven't watched it, I wouldn't. I can only speak for myself, but it gave me that pit feeling in my stomach. But other than that, like I said, I really hope he pulls through. I haven't talked about Ron Paul in a while, but this was the guy that put libertarianism on the map for me. Before him, I was a 2004 Bush-supporting neo-conish Republican. I was pro-war, didn't know a thing about the Fed, not terribly into the war on drugs, although I did always think it was kind of BS, but I also thought big banks, big corporations were the best thing ever. Anything that helps them is good. And I remember thinking specifically during the Bush administration that the housing market was the greatest thing ever. It'll never go down. And meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, there was this guy, Ron Paul, who I considered to be a bit of a nut at the time, sounding the alarm and saying, hey, this is dangerous. This is a huge government and Fed-created bubble. And I think it was after he was proven right, and he was one of the only people who called it, I said, okay, I think I need to listen to this guy. Maybe he isn't so nutty. And then I began listening to his speeches. He mentions the Federal Reserve, so I have to go look that up, learn more about it, and boom, Ron Paul was the main reason I split with the Republican Party. And then over a pretty short period of time, I went all in on libertarianism, and I know a lot of people have similar, if not identical, stories. Then I started reading Henry Hazlitt, Murray Rothbard, von Mises, listening to Ron Paul speak about the war on drugs, and then realizing just how diabolical it was. Like I said, I was not a huge proponent of it, but I was somewhat indifferent towards it. But Ron Paul was the guy that made me realize how terrible and counterproductive it all was. And then, of course, during his debates, during certainly the 2012 election cycle, I was thoroughly convinced this is the only person on that stage that makes any sense whatsoever. He is the only person who seems to be cutting through the BS. He's not speaking like a politician. He's calling out all these things you're not supposed to call out, especially as a Republican, and I was convinced this is the most badass politician I've heard thus far in my life. So other than that, it's tough, but expected to see a good number of people saying stupid things about Ron Paul after he was trending yesterday, sarcastically saying that he must be enjoying the health care that he would prevent others from getting, which is a bit strange considering he was a doctor that gave free health care away on a routine basis when he was practicing, and he only pointed out the insane ways in which government has screwed health care up for everyone. Or Tim Pool, who did make a nice video on Ron Paul, and it was very sympathetic and seemed genuine, but then he puts a little quip in there about how the Ron Paul supporters he used to know would criticize the Fed, and he waves it off as if it's something trivial, which to me, the Fed is one of the biggest issues that Ron Paul brought to the floor. He was the reason why you had untold numbers of people screaming "End the Fed." And if you don't understand why the Federal Reserve is one of the worst institutions in this country, as it is the thing that destroyed savings, caused massive bubbles, prints money which lets us get involved in endless wars and massively and disproportionately helps the rich while it hurts the poor, supports a hollow Wall Street to make sure they remain afloat, and the list goes on and on. I appreciate what Tim Pool said, but if you don't get the Fed, you don't understand why Ron Paul was so important. He was important for a lot of reasons, but I would wager that that's one of the biggest reasons. But in any case, I'm really hoping he makes a full recovery. He was just a huge inspiration to me, and I know he was a huge inspiration to a whole number of people. And he's also, not for nothing, one of the biggest reasons why the Libertarian Party, as much of a kind of joke it is right now, he's one of the biggest reasons why that got going and actually started to garner a lot more attention and support than it did. But that is all for right now. Like and subscribe, and take it easy.